Hello everyone, it's Balzi, and this is hotfix 5.0.1, and it is not currently in the game, but what's next in relation to the Age of Reckoning system? This is something that I've had obviously a lot of feedback, and I've made a video obviously saying it's a very flawed system, and that it needs love and needs a little bit of changes to enable us to play the dwarves how we like playing the dwarves. Because the problem that we had was, some people like to play dwarves tall, some people like to play the dwarves aggressively. And with the current implementation of the Age of Reckoning, if you are somebody that likes to play the dwarves very tall, aka, don't really push out too much, take very few battles, build up your settlements, become very strong, and then start pushing out, the Age of Reckoning obviously punishes you pretty significantly. So one of the things that is important as well, within the video that I made, I can probably link it as well, just so you can get context. If you, at the moment within the Age of Reckoning, you get an alliance, you'll meet more factions. If you do a quest battle, you'll meet more factions. And right now, the grudges scale depending on how many factions that you've met, as we can see right here. So it scales out of control, as CA rightfully said. This is something that I was very passionate about, and I was very, very clear with CA and giving the feedback that I did, that I have played Dwarves since Warhammer 1, and I was like, guys, come on, this is not a good thing, because, for Grombrindle, if you teleport to your quest battle, you'll have met loads of people, and if you meet Vlad, he will basically ruin the complete Grudge / Age of Reckoning mechanic for that specific campaign for Grombrindle, because of the fact that Vlad obviously will do a lot of things in which the Dwarves will not like. And this is also mentioning players are feeling too rushed by the 10-turn cycle. And I would agree with this, right? So there are certain situations where you as the player can quite literally do nothing wrong and attack settlements within that 10-turn cycle. You can have 3 armies running out, trying your best to attack all the settlements possible, and still only get like 20, 30, 37% of the Age of Reckoning, which I've actually seen happen as Grombrindle's campaign since I met loads of the Order Tide, and obviously all the evil stuff around the Order Tide and Empire. And so what that ended up doing was basically force the player into a situation where you are getting diminished grudges because it's scaling elsewhere. And, as part of the 10-turn cycle, you are basically forced into a certain playstyle. For me personally, I very much dislike the way that the Realms of Chaos, the original implementation of the Realms of Chaos, in which forced you to go into the portals to do all that kind of stuff there. And I think, typically speaking, throughout the history of Total War, anytime we've had something that has forced a player into do something and you do not have the control over what you want to do, taking us away from a sandbox experience, that is never going to go down well. And, right now, I think it would be interesting to see, how they change it, what they can do there, because personally, I'm an exceptionally aggressive dwarf player. I love to fight things a lot. If you ever watch my streams, I will put myself in the dumbest situations to see if I can win. And most of the time, I do. Sometimes I take the L and, chat laughs at me, but that's okay. But you can also see that, players are struggling to get out the lower tier brackets, and they would receive debuffs rather than bonuses. So this is a feedback that I gave in relation to, if you are in a situation where you quite physically cannot go over the brackets of the lower tier stuff, the -25 growth is actually pretty damn big, because a tier 1 settlement fundamentally will get no growth when you've just started to expand somewhere. And so in that cycle, you cannot build up other settlements unless you take the entirety of the province. And even then, you'll have to use the commandments to get 15 growth, and if you've upgraded, obviously 25. And so you've got extremely small amounts of growth in a situation where you're trying to expand. And that's what the cycle of Age of Reckoning is trying to make you do anyway. So you're trying to expand, but then if you're trying to expand and the mechanic is just not working because the grudges are scaling elsewhere, you're in a situation where it's like, okay, I'm trying to expand for the mechanic, but at the same time, I'm in a situation now where I've been punished. I have no growth in these provinces, and so it's probably better off for me just to let the AI take them. And then I can get a lot more grudges, because if you don't know, grudges scale massively if they take settlements from you. I'll be probably making a grudge video just to make sure you guys are aware of all the weird and wonderful things that you can do with the current grudge system. Obviously, it'll be useful context-wise for all that. And I think the influx of free units and summoned grudge settler armies has massive effects on the early game. I mean, that is true, but in truth, only a few of the grudge settler armies are actually useful, for the most part, right? So the Slayers will die very quickly. You know, it's not like they're extremely overperforming from the normal Slayers. So from Malachi specifically, you can get Slayer units turn 5, right? It's not kind of a crazy thing that's happening, but it's the fact that they're like a regiment around, and you can put them in your armies straight away. And that's where the strength comes from, you know? And it sort of incentivizes the player to not recruit them in your army because of the fact that you can put them anywhere instantly. And so having a lot of free units, it's sometimes very difficult to then use them in an army, especially because of the fact, like I said, I personally use the Regents of Renown as a emergency. The Grudge Settlers can be used as an emergency. The main army that gets spawned is obviously very, very powerful, but it's not something that can fight a lot of battles. You know, you're talking about an army that can't replenish. It has a 10-turn timer, and if you go against pretty much anything, most of your units in that army are going to take a lot of damage. So it's, for me personally, it's not that big of an issue, especially since it spawns at the capital as well at the same time. So that's not like a massive factor that's going to be a problem. You know, it's spawning quite literally at your capital, so you might be miles away, and you might have a difficult time using it. For example, Ungrim, you know, he spawns the army at Karakadrin, and the only place you really have to go with it is taking it to Vlad. And that's pretty much a suicide attempt. You're not going to be able to use the army that you get from the mechanic to do that. Odds of that is very low. So in the late game, massive stockpiles of Grudge Settler units build up in the pools. Well, yeah, I mean, that to me is once again the elements of Regents Renowned and how you want to keep them and stockpiling them. I think unless you were to have a turn timer on them or something like that, make it akin to the Grudge army, that's always going to happen. And I think for me, that's not a problem. But I would love to hear what they're going to address it. So it's saying change how we calculate your met factions. Fantastic. That's exactly, you know, the kind of things that we needed to see. I kind of had an idea of having it basically specific to your own land, so it wouldn't be too much further than what you currently own, so it can only scale around you. Still a lot of grudges start to scale up depending on your local situation, but it won't get out of control after simply meeting new factions across the map, which is a fantastic change. That will be something that's huge, especially because of the fact that, you know, you're in a situation where if you are declaring war on people across the map for money because you want to try and snowball your campaign a little bit, you won't get punished for that anymore. And it will make it so that you don't get to the point where Age of Reckoning is asking for unrealistic grudges. And removing the control growth penalties, that is really good. You know, this is sort of what I was talking about. You know, you don't, if you do hit the low control points because you're trying to build tall, especially as well, you're in a situation now where you're punished just for existing. And I'm liking the fact that they're getting rid of the control and growth stuff. We don't want players to hit the higher reward cycle each cycle. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, even now, it's pretty much impossible to do that anyway. I think I managed to, by pure RNG, do 2 100%ers in a row, and then the third one was like, okay, now you need to kill the entire map to get the third one. It's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do that. Don't want them to struggle to get out of the negative brackets. Yeah, this is sort of where I was coming at. You know, if you're punished for trying to expand and new settlements, you know, it's difficult. So act like more of a neutral stage and then a second negative one, which is good. Alleviate the pressure of needing to clear at least 50% each cycle. Love that. That is a fantastic change, allowing both the people that like to play slower and not. Increase the Age of Reckoning duration to 15 turns. This is something that's good, but you'll have to be very careful with how you scale the grudges that are acquired. It wouldn't make sense to use the current implementation and then just say, okay, add 50% to the Age of Reckoning. That doesn't make sense. So we're going to need to be very careful about how that is actually implemented. Let's give you longer durations, a bit more freedom to take that turn 2 to 3 movement to a new target, as long as, yeah, they have enough grudges. So you don't want to expand in a direction where you're not going to get a lot of grudges. You know, for example, you may be in certain areas where you have to attack certain Order-Tide factions, certain factions that aren't necessarily super evil to you, and you're not going to get a lot for that. So that would need to be, you know, looked into. Adding a few more starting grudges to the world where appropriate. Love that. Reducing the size of the spawn grudges. Increase it by more text. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it's a really good way of scaling that because early game it'll be worse, later on it'll be better. Which is also, you'll need to spawn the army at your Legendary Lord if that's the case. For me personally, I'll probably provide this feedback. You'll need to make sure that you provide, you know, actually give this to your main Legendary Lord, because otherwise if it's spawning at your main army, it may take you a long time to get towards where your army is, and then at that point it's not worth it because it's not enough units to care about. No longer be free to recruit, but adding some recruitment cost in mid-game techs. Yeah, makes perfect sense. It not costing anything is obviously one of the reasons why it's so easy to use. But then again, that doesn't stop the fact of, mid-game just popping stuff into your army and then just laughing to the bank with that one. So reducing the maximum grudge settlers reserved in the pool. Okay, yeah. Once again, for me personally, I didn't really have many problems with the grudge settler units. I think, depending on how late into the campaign you're getting, because turn 50 or so, if you actually get enough of these units, you may have max cap, but yeah, we'll see. Shouldn't hit the maximum reward every time. Agree with that. Don't want to become a stressful experience for players who don't want to receive debuffs. Love that. Monitor changes. Honestly, I don't want to say CA is back, but they're doing some awesome stuff. This right here is just things that music to my ears, and I think the DLC that's come out is fantastic, and I am loving this. So don't rush us out to make sure everything's pliant. So yeah, hopefully I'll probably provide feedback if I possibly can. And yeah, great work, CA. Love this. Happy to see that the Age of Reckoning tweaks are being implemented into the game. Also, if you are joining my Battles Your Boys tournament, you need to make sure you're in the Discord. Otherwise, I will not be able to guarantee you'll get into a battle. I think we've had over about 100 people sign up, which is amazing, and I appreciate you guys so much. We've got obviously Legend, Okoy, and all the wonderful people there joining to commentate the tournament with me. So make sure you're in my Discord. It'll be in the description. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and make sure to check out my other content on the screen now.